Hey everyone, how's it going? This is going to be quite a different video. I am actually making this just to make myself be more productive and do something on the channel because it's been a while since I've posted a video, and I do have a lot of things in the works that I hope will be out soon. I've been working on a video on the letter of Aristeas and the myth of the 70 translators, another video on the Council of Rome in 382, and yet another video on Melchizedek, as well as my own commentary on Matthew. So I have been putting in the work for some of this stuff, and I hope to be bringing a lot of really interesting content to you guys very soon. But today, I actually wanted to address a question that was left in my Discord about some textual criticism. And I think this is a great opportunity to kind of show people the complexity and breadth of interest in this topic, or at least how interesting this topic can be, because it is there's a lot of minutia, a lot of tiny details that often get overlooked. So I kind of wanted to address this. So here is the question that was left. The NA28 apparatus makes note of the variant in 1 Timothy 3:16, hos ephanerothe en sarki, or theos ephanerothe en sarki. Coming from the difference of hos and theos, I noticed that the apparatus for UBS and NA28 say that Bezé, D, reads ho and is corrected as theos, D2. But when I'm looking at Codex Claromontanus, it doesn't look like ho is a possible original reading, because it looks like the text made room for the sigma in hos/theos. So let's take a look at what they're talking about. So firstly, NA28 is the 28th edition of the Nestle-Aland Critical Greek text. And here is my copy of it over here. You can kind of see that one. So we are right now in 1 Timothy. So this is Pros Timotheon A. So that would be, or Alpha, I guess, right? But either way, this would be the first letter to Timothy. So we go down here to verse 16. We see something that kind of looks like an F, right? And there's a whole bunch of these little notes. We have this thing that looks like an F. We have this one that is kind of like that, but without the secondary line. And we also have this square up here, this dash right here. And the thing is, all of these little notes have meaning, obviously. So for example, this square and the one ending in a dash means that in some manuscripts, this is omitted, this phrase here. So this would be pros se. So that is to you. That is to be omitted in some manuscripts. And at the bottom of the page, we can see this right here that will show us exactly which manuscripts omit or add a certain reading, or if they change certain readings, whatever it may be. Now, for what we're looking at right here, and this is the text that we're looking at, hos ephanerothe en sarki. That's what we're looking at here. And I'm going to put up a little arrow so everyone knows what I'm talking about. So this means who appeared in flesh. That's what that means. So this is the reading that they have went with. And in order to come to this reading, what you essentially do is you look at a whole bunch of manuscripts, and they're going to be different readings in most of these, and you kind of have to look at it and go like, okay, well, which possible reading explains the existence of all the originals? And that way we can come to a more likely original reading of the text. So the more likely original reading that Nestle-Aland 28 has come to is hos ephanerothe en sarki, who appeared in flesh. And if we go down to this little symbol here in verse 16, so we're going to go down to verse 16 here. We see in the sigla right here, verse 16. And we look for the little sigla. And we're looking at the one that kind of looks like an F, so we're over here. And it just says ho exists in D, and this little asterisk here is essentially like the first one, the prime one, because a lot of these manuscripts have secondary redactors. So sometimes you have a manuscript that's written out, and then someone looks at it later and goes, well, hey, that doesn't make sense. So they actually have redactors that are writing in the already extant manuscripts, so you have a secondary hand. So this D with an asterisk, this D prime, is saying that the original reading of that text, before any redactions, was in the very first hand was ho, which just means the. But then it also gives you another one here. If I scroll down a little bit, there you go. You see theos. So the first reading is the, tho, ho, and then you have theos here, and it gives you like a whole bunch of readings. You have a whole bunch of majuscules, a whole bunch of uncials, and you have the uncials, you have a bunch of minuscules, and what the person who's asking the question here, they're asking about hos and theos and how the reading is when we actually take a look at the manuscript Claromontanus. So what I'm going to do is going to pull up here Claromontanus. Okay, so here I have pulled up the exact page that they're talking about in Claromontanus, and we can kind of see what they're going for here. So the actual section that they're looking at in this verse is right here, and there are a few things that we can note. If we take a look, if we just zoom out and look at the page, we can see that it's formatted in a certain way. So in modern nomenclature, we'll say that like these are kind of like tabbed, right? Like you have the paragraph starting here, and then these are all tabbed until you have another one. Now this is a pretty common practice, but if we take a look closer, we also see that this over here is kind of out of place. It seems a little weird. It's not exactly aligned the same way everything else is. So we can kind of see this at the top of this verse as well, or sorry, at the start of this paragraph. I'm just going to keep it simple, say paragraph. It's not exactly what it is, but we'll say that. So we see this here as well. We have this nun that's added right before the omega. And the thing is, we know that's from a secondary hand, because if we look really close, we see a nun right there, the letter N. So we take a look at what we actually have going on here, and we're looking at this. This is the key section right here. You have what looks kind of like an omicron and what looks kind of like a sigma. And now remember, what they're looking at is the original reading, right? So we have a few possibilities here. If we were to read this the way that it is, this would be actually theos. This is actually a theta, even though it looks like an omicron. But if you look really closely, you kind of see a faint line right here in the omicron. And if you compare it to other thetas, for example, up here, you will see that faint line. So the secondary hand has this theta right here. They add a theta to this sigma right here, and then add a line over it. And this is a shorthand for theos, for God. And this happens with a lot of names, especially. This happens with the name of Jesus in a lot of New Testament manuscripts, where you just have the first and last letters of Jesus' name and then a line above it. Just kind of shorthand. Now, the interesting part about this is that there is a reason why the original reading that they went with was hos, but that is not actually pertinent to Claromontanus. If we go back and look here, we'll see that in D prime, so in this manuscript, there is, it says that the reading for the manuscript, the first hand manuscript reading, is ho. And then it says that a secondary redactor made it theos. So where does that come from, right? The question is asking about how they got the original reading ho. So if we go back and look at this manuscript, I think that the reason that they are saying, because this could easily be mistaken for an omicron right here. And the thing is, this would be what's making it Theos, right? Now, if this was the Omicron, then yes, you could say that there was enough room left to for the sigma right here. But that's not what's happening. Instead, let's take a closer look at that sigma. I want you to notice how close these two lines are to connecting. And I want you to compare this sigma to other sigmas. So this, for example, is a sigma, which would be basically equivalent to letter S. And these lines are very far apart. This looks closer to our letter C. And if you check some other ones, this one here as well looks closer to letter C, this one here as well. But if you look here, it's a lot closer. These two lines are a lot closer. So there's some possibilities here. I think that this was initially meant, and this is why the critical apparatus says that this was initially Ho. It was initially an Omicron. Because this letter, while it looks like a sigma, is actually an Omicron. This is actually Ho. So the original reading here in Claromontanus specifically is Ho ephanerothe en sarke. So that would be he appeared in flesh. That's what that would mean. So if we are, that was the original reading. Now, what likely would have happened is that a later scribe working with this manuscript saw this and went, oh, that's spelled wrong. That's just a sigma. Well, that can't make any sense. That's not a word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to the manuscript what I think it is. And what that second scribe thought it was Theos. So that's why in the critical apparatus, they have the secondary hand, in this case D2. D is just the sigla for Bizet, but it's also the sigla for Claromontanus. I'll get into that in a second. So the secondary scribe saw this, went, that can't be it. I'm going to correct it. So he corrects this, and you can kind of see, like, this is very clearly from a different hand. Not only is the alignment all off, but it's also like written in like new ink. So he adds what he thinks was originally there. So that secondary scribe adds this theta with a line over it, making it go from he appeared in flesh to God appeared in flesh. So he changed it to Theos. And that is what is likely to have happened here. And I think that is very interesting. Now, the original reading, like I mentioned, in Nestle Aland 28, would be closer to like who appeared in flesh. But that's not really about, this isn't really about the original reading that I'm talking about. This is about the specific reading in Claromontanus. And the thing is, Codex Bizet, it just includes the Gospels and Acts. Claromontanus is the Pauline epistles. But the reason why they both have the sigla D, which you will find, which can be confusing, is because the same guy, Theodore Bizet, owned them and worked with them. So they're both labeled as Bizet, or they're both labeled as D. But there is another system that was made for this, and one of them we could call D05, and Claromontanus would be D06. So because we are looking at the Pauline epistles here, this would be in Claromontanus and not Bizet. But they are both labeled as D, so that can get confusing. But I think that this is just a really interesting case study of how textual criticism is done, because like you kind of got to look at some of this stuff for a while to figure it out, right? Because on first glance, it even looks like hos, right? But then you notice the line and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Hos is the full word. It can't have the line. And then you look at it even closer and you're like, wait a minute, there's this faint line within the Omicron. Oh, that's a theta. So the addition to this manuscript would make the reading God appeared in flesh, while the original reading of this manuscript was he appeared in flesh, which is why the critical apparatus in Nestle Allen 28 says that. But either way, I thought this was just a fun little thing that I could do to kind of show the intricacies of doing this kind of work. And it is very interesting. I find this to be a lot of fun, and I wish I could do it all the time. But unfortunately, I cannot. I gotta pay the bills, don't I? So either way, thanks for joining me today, and hopefully that was at least informative to some people. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And I guess I'll see you on a different day. Oh, right. Please consider becoming a patron. That's what I'm going to say. Please consider becoming a patron. And also subscribing, dropping a like, leaving a comment, just doing something to help the channel grow. Thank you so much, and I will see you on a different day.